Let us discuss the questions from assignment 2. Question number 1. Mark the statements that are true. The Archimedean property holds true for Q. Yes, of course it does. One easy way to see this is to just consider a small positive rational number of the form 1 by n, and notice that you can multiply this by a really large natural number m into 1 by n to make it larger than any given rational number. The nested intervals property holds true for Q. No, it doesn't. To see this, all you can do is just take rational closed intervals around root 2, and then you can see that if you choose a nested intervals that is centered on root 2, the intersection will have to be empty. The set R minus Q is a field under addition and multiplication. Well, this is again not true because the sum of two rational numbers need not necessarily, the sum of two irrational numbers need not necessarily be a irrational number. To see that, just consider 2 plus root 2 and minus root 2. The sum of these two is actually 2. So addition, when you add two irrational numbers, you need not get an irrational number, so there is no hope for it to be a field. The set R minus Q is uncountable. Well, this is easy. We already know that Q is countable and we know that R is uncountable. Therefore, if R minus Q were also uncountable, R would be countable, which is not true. So let's move on to question 2. Let F be a field and A, B be two elements of F such that A is not 0. Then which of the following are true? The equation Ax equal to B has no solution for x in F. This is simply not true because any non-zero element definitely has an inverse. So what you can do is you can multiply both sides of this equation by A inverse to get a solution. The solution, the equation Ax equal to B has at least one solution for x in F. Yes, it does. I just showed you how. The equation Ax equal to B has exactly one solution for x in F. Yes, again that's true. We know what that exact solution is. X is A inverse multiplied by B. Now if F is an infinite field, then Ax equal to B has infinitely many solutions for x in F. No, it has exactly one. Question number 3. Which of the following statements are true? Root 2 is the supremum of a set which contains only rational numbers. Yes, look at all the rationals which are less than root 2. Root 2 is the infimum of a set which contains only rational numbers. Yes, look at all rational numbers that are greater than root 2. Root 2 is the supremum of a set which contains only irrational numbers. Yes, look at all the irrational numbers that are less than root 2. And similarly for option D. Question number 4. Which of the following subsets of R are possible? A set B with infimum of B greater than or equal to supremum of B. Yes, of course it's possible. Just take a singleton set. A finite set that contains its infimum but not its supremum. That's simply not possible. If you take a finite set, you look at the maximum of all the elements in that finite set and look at the minimum of all the elements. That minimum and maximum will actually be the infimum and supremum. A bounded subset of Q that contains its supremum but not its infimum. Well, that's again easy. Look at all the rational numbers that are in between 0 and 1, but 1 is also there in that set. So it will have its supremum but not its infimum. A bounded subset of n that does not contain its infimum. Well, this is not possible. This is famously known as the well-ordering property of natural numbers. Every non-empty subset of the natural numbers always contains a minimum element. Question number 5. So this question number 5, it requires a bit of working out. So I will just give hints on how to solve this. It's not really that hard. So look at two sets A, B and consider the sum of all elements of the form, look at all the elements of the form A plus B where A comes from A and B comes from B. Which of the following are true? If A and B are bounded sets, then C is a bounded set. This is easy to see simply because look at the infimum of A and look at the infimum of B. You can show that the infimum of C is the sum of these two infimums. Similarly, look at the supremum of A and the supremum of B and you can show that the supremum of C is less than the sum of these supremums. Okay, I should say less than. So look at the infimum of A and the infimum of B and add them up, and that will be less than the infimum of C, less than or equal to be 100% precise. So in a similar way, you can argue that if C is a bounded set, then A and B are bounded sets. So I would suggest the way you argue this is assume that one of A or B are unbounded, then show that this C will also have to be unbounded. The way to see that, one easy way to see that is to first assume for simplicity that the set B has the element 0. If you assume that the set B has the element 0, then the set C contains A as a subset. And therefore, if A is unbounded, C will also have to be unbounded. Now argue the case if 0 is not an element of B. And you will notice that there is nothing really special about 0. Any element in B, you can use the same argument to show that if A is unbounded, then C has to be unbounded. If R minus A and R minus B are bounded sets, then R minus C is a bounded set. Again, you argue in the same way. The moment R minus A or R minus B are bounded sets, then it stands to follow that A and B have to be unbounded sets. Okay, and argue in a similar way to the argument I just highlighted, the hint I gave for B. If R minus C is a bounded set, then R minus A and R minus B are bounded sets. This is not true. What can happen is one of R minus A or R minus B can be bounded and the other unbounded, and it can turn out that R minus C is a bounded set. That can happen. Please think about how to show that rigorously. Now, which of the following requests are possible? Two bounded sets A and B with A intersection B equal to the empty set, S is equal to supremum of A equal to supremum of B, but S is not in A and not in B. Well, this is easy. Just look at the open interval 0, 1. Take A to be all the rational points here and B to be all the irrational points here. Then clearly A intersect B is empty, and the supremum of A and the supremum of B are both the number 1, but neither does 1 belong to A nor 1 belong to B. Now, option B, nested close intervals A1 containing A2 containing A3 whose intersection contains more than 1 point. Well, remember in our notation, this superset does not mean that it's a strict superset. So it can happen that A1 is equal to A2 is equal to A3. That's very much allowed. So just take A1, A2, A3 to be all closed intervals. Let's say 0, 1, closed interval 0, 1, then the intersection is going to be closed interval 0, 1. Nested open intervals whose intersection contains a single point. This is again easy. Just look at open interval minus 1 by n, comma 1 by n. The intersection of all these will be the singleton set 0. Nested open intervals A1 subset of A2 subset of A3 whose intersection is an empty set. Well, for this just look at 0. What you do is the following. Look at open 0, comma 1 by n. Open 0, comma 1 by n. If you take the intersection of this, it will be the empty set. Okay, let's look at problem 7. Which one of the following statements about the real numbers are true? If x is greater than y and z is not 0, then xz is greater than yz. This is not true. What if z is negative? Then the signs will reverse. If xy equal to xz, then y equal to z. Again, you cannot just blindly cancel the x. X could have been 0. If 0 is less than x less than y, then 1 by x is greater than 1 by y. This is a familiar basic algebraic identity that you have learnt in school. If x plus y equal to x plus z, then y equal to z. Yes, you can always cancel off the x by adding minus x to both sides of the equation. Question number 8. Which of the following numbers are irrational? Now this follows from one of the exercises which involved polynomials with integer coefficients. From that it's certainly very easy to do. I will give a hint as to how to solve that in an additional PDF attachment. But let's deal with some of the cases. This root 2 plus root 3 you can directly prove is irrational by squaring it. If it were rational, then the square will also be rational. The square of that will be 2 plus 3 plus 2 root 2 root 3, which is 2 root 6, and you can show directly that root 6 is irrational. So option B will be irrational. Root 50 will be, again you can directly show that it's irrational, but you can use that polynomial integer coefficients theorem also. In a similar way, you can show that 2 power 3 by 2 is also irrational. I will give a PDF attachment with a hint as to how to solve that problem. The sum of any two irrational numbers, I have already highlighted why the sum of two irrational numbers need not always be an irrational number. Now, question number 9. All of us know the famous formula to find the roots of the quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, and the roots are given by minus b plus or minus root of b squared minus 4ac by 2a. Which of the following are plausible ways to prove the formula? Well, option A is certainly correct. You can directly substitute the formula and check that these two are the roots. It's just a bit tedious, but it is doable. Completing the square. This is how you would have solved quadratic equations in probably 9th standard. You can complete the square and then you will later learn the formula. Assume that y equal to x squared and substitute in the equation to get a linear equation. Well, you cannot just substitute y equal to x squared. What will you do with x? You will get root y. You will not end up with a linear equation. So option C is wrong. Option D, find the general formula to solve a polynomial of degree n, then set n equal to 2. Well, at the outset, this seems like a good strategy, but this is a terrible one because there is no such formula for solving the polynomial of degree n. Furthermore, this is such a simple equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, whereas the degree n one is going to look really complicated. Even if there were a general formula, this would be a very, very bad way of going about it. Let's look at problem 10. A real number is said to be algebraic if it is the root of a polynomial, all of whose coefficients are integers. Which of the following statements combined together appropriately prove that the set of algebraic numbers is countable? Well, option A is obviously wrong. Any algebraic number has to be rational is not true. Just look at x squared minus 2 equal to 0. This is certainly a polynomial, all of whose coefficients are integers, and the solution is not a rational number. So root 2 is an algebraic number that is not rational. The set of polynomials with integer coefficients is countable. Yes, that is true. You can easily check that because a polynomial is after all given by n coefficients, or a polynomial of degree n is given by n plus 1 coefficients, and since these coefficients have to be all integers, there are going to be only countably many polynomials of degree n, and this is true for each n. Therefore, the set of all polynomials with integer coefficients is countable because a countable union of countable sets is countable. So option B seems it's certainly a correct fact, but let's see. The question says, how do you combine these statements? Which of the following statements combined appropriately prove the set of algebraic numbers is countable? So option B, let's keep it in mind. Any non-constant polynomial is only a finite number of roots. Yes, this is certainly true. You have learned this in school. Countable union of countable sets is countable. Yes, that is true. And you can easily see that you can combine these three statements to prove that the set of all algebraic numbers is countable. The way you do that is the following. The set of all polynomials with integer coefficients is countable. Any non-constant polynomial has only a finite number of roots. So associated to each polynomial, you get a finite set. Then countable union of countable sets is countable. So you have a countable collection of polynomials. Associated to each polynomial is a finite set. Taking the union of these, which is a countable union, you will get a countable set. Therefore, options B, C and D combined appropriately prove that the set of algebraic numbers is countable. Thank you.